The real danger isn't out there, it's inside you. Right now, as you watch this, invisible forces are pulling the strings of your life. Ancient patterns carved into your psyche before you could even speak, hidden drives masquerading as your own desires. Rejected parts of yourself that have been sabotaging you for years from the shadows of your unconscious mind. You think you're in control of your decisions? You're not. You think your thoughts, reactions, and attractions are genuinely yours? They're not. You think you understand why you keep making the same devastating mistakes, choosing the same toxic relationships, destroying the same opportunities, right when success is within reach. You have no idea what's really running your life, but Carl Jung did, and what he discovered about the human psyche will shatter every comfortable illusion you have about yourself. Are you tired of the same relationship disasters playing out like a broken record? The same patterns of self-sabotage appearing just when things start going well? The same critical voice in your head telling you you're not enough no matter what you achieve? Stop blaming bad luck. Stop calling it fate. Stop pretending it's just how life works. There's something lurking in the basement of your unconscious mind that's been orchestrating your pain, writing your failures, directing your self-destruction. And until you find the courage to face it, you'll keep repeating these patterns, forever. But here's what no one tells you. That same dark force that's been destroying your life can become your greatest source of power and authenticity. If you're brave enough to look directly into the abyss of yourself. Warning: once you understand what I'm about to show you, there's no going back to comfortable ignorance. You'll see the invisible puppet strings everywhere. You'll recognize the masks people wear to hide from themselves, including the mask you've been wearing your entire life. Most people can't handle this level of truth. They prefer their beautiful, soul-crushing lies. Are you different? We're about to find out. Carl Jung wasn't interested in making you feel better. He wanted to make you whole, even if the process tore you apart first. Jung sensed from early childhood that reality had hidden dimensions most people never glimpsed. That beneath your personal unconscious lies an ancient ocean of shared human darkness. Primordial fears, archetypal patterns, mythic forces that have been shaping human behavior for thousands of years. He called it the collective unconscious, and it changed psychology forever. Jung found infinite complexity, endless mystery, depths that went back to the very origins of human consciousness. He saw sacred wounds trying to communicate. He wanted to understand what those wounds were desperately trying to tell us about our authentic selves. Jung created analytical psychology, not to fix you like a broken machine, but to help you discover who you really are beneath all the lies, masks, and expectations you've been carrying since childhood. He believed suffering wasn't a mistake or malfunction. It was a message from your soul, screaming for attention, begging you to wake up and live authentically. But why does this matter more urgently today than ever before? Because you're still running from yourself, still hiding behind personas, still living someone else's idea of what your life should look like, while your authentic self suffocates in the depths. The journey begins with the most disturbing realization of all: you're not alone in your own mind. You think your deepest fears are personal, your most shameful desires individual, your repetitive patterns unique to your particular story. You're completely wrong. Beneath your personal consciousness lies something vast, ancient, and absolutely terrifying: the collective unconscious. A psychic ocean shared by every human being who has ever lived, filled with the psychological residue of our entire species' experience. Your mind isn't a private island of individual experience. It's the visible tip of a massive iceberg, connected to depths that contain the fears, drives, and patterns of humanity itself. Think about this. Why do cultures separated by continents and centuries create virtually identical myths? Why do complete strangers have the same recurring nightmares? Why do certain symbols, serpents, crosses, spirals, mountains, trigger instant emotional responses you can't rationally explain? Because you're not just carrying your own psychological baggage, you're carrying the inherited psychological DNA of our entire species. When you feel that primal terror of abandonment, you're not just remembering your childhood. You're touching an ancestral fear that haunted our ancestors when separation from the tribe meant certain death. This collective unconscious explains why certain images possess you with mysterious power, why dark forests feel ominous even if you've never been in one, why crossing bodies of water represents transition and change, why ascending mountains feels heroic and sacred. These aren't cultural accidents or learned associations. They're the native language of human consciousness, speaking directly to parts of your psyche that existed long before you learned words. But here's the most terrifying truth of all. These ancient forces influence every major decision you make. They pull your emotional strings without your permission. They write your romantic story, choose your career path, and sabotage your happiness, all without your conscious awareness. Unless you become conscious, unless you learn to recognize these invisible puppet masters. If this is already hitting a nerve, subscribe. We're just getting started. You think you're one unified person with consistent thoughts and behaviors? You're not. You're actually a collection of ancient characters, archetypal energies, all competing for control of your consciousness, like actors fighting for center stage. The hero archetype, desperate to overcome challenges and prove worthiness. The lover, seeking connection and passionate meaning. The sage, hungry for wisdom and understanding. The innocent, longing for safety and simple answers. But darker, more dangerous forces live in there too. The shadow, containing everything you've rejected about yourself. The destroyer, seeking to tear down whatever no longer serves. The trickster, delighting in chaos and disruption of the status quo. Right now, as you watch this, one of these archetypal energies is running your emotional show. You just don't know which one has seized control. Ever acted completely unlike your normal self and wondered where that behavior came from? Ever felt possessed by emotions so intense they seem to belong to someone else? Ever wondered why you keep attracting the exact same toxic patterns in relationships, jobs, and friendships? That's archetypal possession. Ancient energies hijacking your consciousness and playing out their timeless dramas through your modern life. The person who constantly rescues others while slowly destroying themselves inside, that's the hero archetype expressing in its shadow form, addicted to the drama of being needed. The individual who never feels worthy of love despite endless achievements. The wounded child archetype has taken over, running their adult life from a place of ancient hurt. Someone who systematically sabotages every good thing that enters their life. Their shadow has become the puppet master, ensuring they never have to risk the vulnerability of actually receiving love or success. When unconscious, they completely enslave you to repetitive patterns. When recognized and consciously integrated, they become incredible sources of power, creativity, and authentic self-expression. But integration requires facing the one archetype that everyone runs from, the one that holds both your greatest shame and your most potent power. You need to meet your shadow. Everyone has a monster living inside them. Everyone. You've spent your entire life trying to be good, acceptable, worthy of love and approval. In that exhausting process, you created what Jung called the shadow, a hidden psychic container for everything you couldn't accept about yourself and still maintain your carefully constructed self-image, your rage that could burn down forests, your selfishness that would choose yourself over anyone, your weakness that crumbles under pressure, your cruelty that could destroy with words, your desperate neediness that would beg for attention, your arrogance that believes you're superior to others. It's all there, living in the basement of your psyche, growing stronger and more influential every single time you deny its existence. Ever exploded with anger so intense it shocked even you? Ever found yourself saying something so cruel you wondered where those words came from? Ever acted with such calculated selfishness that you couldn't recognize yourself? Ever sabotaged something beautiful in your life, right when everything was finally going well? That was your shadow breaking free from its prison, taking control of your actions for those crucial moments. But here's what makes the shadow so dangerous. It's not evil. It's simply everything you had to reject, suppress, and disown in order to survive your childhood, fit into your family, and gain acceptance from your social group. And here's the brutal truth that changes everything. Whatever you don't consciously face in your shadow starts controlling your life from beneath the surface of your awareness. It shows up as the internal voice that tears you apart just before important opportunities. It manifests as the mysterious attraction to people who will ultimately hurt you. It appears as the inexplicable urge to destroy what you've worked so hard to build. Most dangerously, It projects itself onto other people. The qualities that trigger you most intensely in others, the things that make you irrationally angry, disgusted, or judgmental, those are usually aspects of your own shadow that you refuse to acknowledge exist within you. You can only recognize in others what already exists somewhere in yourself. The person who constantly criticizes others for being selfish, they're running in terror from their own unacknowledged selfishness. But here's what transforms everything. Your shadow isn't just a repository of darkness and shame, it's also a treasure vault of power, creativity, and authentic energy that you abandoned in order to fit into other people's expectations. Shadow work, the terrifying process of recognizing, accepting, and consciously integrating these rejected parts, isn't about becoming a worse person. It's about becoming a complete person. Most people spend their entire lives as professional actors in someone else's screenplay. They perfect the role of the good child who never causes problems, the successful professional who always delivers results, the perfect partner who anticipates every need, the responsible parent who sacrifices everything for their children. They become so completely identified with these carefully rehearsed performances that they forget who they actually were before they learned to act. They live and die having never met their authentic self, trapped inside personas that felt safe but slowly suffocated their soul. Jung called this exhausting performance living from the persona, the social mask we construct to interface with the world's expectations. The persona isn't inherently evil or wrong. We need some version of it to function in society. But when we become completely identified with this mask, when we mistake the performance for reality, we lose access to our authentic self entirely. Jung discovered there's a much deeper, more dangerous, and ultimately more liberating process available: individuation. The hero's journey from false self to authentic being, from unconscious living to conscious choice. This isn't the shallow self-improvement you find in most psychology. This isn't about becoming a more successful, attractive, or positive version of your current persona. This is psychological death and rebirth, the complete dissolution of who you think you are so that who you actually are can finally emerge. Individuation usually begins with crisis, breakdown, what Jung called the dark night of the soul. Something happens that completely shatters your carefully constructed identity. A marriage ends unexpectedly. A career you invested decades building suddenly collapses. These aren't accidents or punishments. They're invitations from your authentic self, breaking through the prison of persona to demand recognition and expression. But individuation isn't a passive process you wait to happen to you. It requires the most courageous act possible, actively questioning everything you think you know about yourself, examining every belief, challenging every automatic response. Most importantly, individuation demands that you develop an ongoing relationship with your unconscious mind through the one mysterious channel that most people completely ignore: the symbolic language of dreams. Every single night, while your conscious mind sleeps, your unconscious creates an elaborate private theater performance designed specifically for you. It writes complex scripts, designs stunning visual imagery, populates entire worlds with mysterious characters, and presents emotional experiences more vivid than most Hollywood productions. Most people dismiss these nightly productions as meaningless brain static. Jung discovered they're actually the most important communications you'll ever receive about who you really are and who you're meant to become. Your dreams are letters written in a symbolic language by your authentic self, containing information your conscious mind desperately needs but can't access through logical thinking alone. Dreams serve a compensatory function for conscious attitudes. When your waking mind gets stuck in limiting patterns or avoiding important aspects of your experience, your dreams step in to provide psychological balance. The language of dreams is pure symbolism. Water might represent your emotional life, the unconscious itself, spiritual cleansing, or rebirth. A house might symbolize your sense of self or your life circumstances. Animals often represent instinctual energies or aspects of yourself you've lost touch with. But symbols are deeply personal. A serpent in your dream might represent transformation, ancient wisdom, dangerous temptation, healing energy, or your own repressed sexuality. The key is understanding what it means specifically to you. Learning dream language isn't about interpretation manuals. it's about developing fluency in your soul's native tongue. Once you start this conversation with your unconscious, you discover something remarkable. It's been trying to guide you toward wholeness all along. You just didn't know how to listen. We live in the most connected, yet spiritually isolated era in human history. We're drowning in an endless tsunami of external stimuli, social media notifications, news alerts, entertainment options, advertising messages, all strategically designed to keep your attention focused anywhere except the one place where real transformation happens: the inner landscape of your own soul. The result is a global epidemic of anxiety, depression, and existential emptiness that no amount of external success seems able to cure. Millions of people feeling accomplished on paper, but utterly hollow inside. Jung predicted this spiritual crisis decades before it fully manifested. He saw clearly that as traditional sources of meaning gradually weakened, people would become increasingly disconnected from their own souls. Without access to the symbolic language of dreams, without understanding of archetypal patterns, without recognition and integration of shadow material, people become trapped in purely superficial existence. They mistake their carefully constructed personas for their authentic selves. Most dangerously, they seek in the outer world what can only be discovered and sustained from within: genuine self-acceptance, authentic purpose, and unshakable inner peace. The modern self-help industry often operates at the level of persona improvement, helping you become a more successful, confident, or positive version of your current false self. It rarely questions whether that self is authentic in the first place. Jung's work goes infinitely deeper. It asks the fundamental question of whether you're actually living your own life or someone else's idea of what your life should look like. Your journey back to yourself begins now. You've spent years, maybe decades, building a life based on what you thought you were supposed to want, supposed to achieve, supposed to become. You followed the prescribed path. You met the expected milestones. You checked off the boxes that family, culture, and society presented as markers of a successful, worthy life. And somewhere along that well-traveled road, you lost touch with the person you actually were before the world started telling you who to be. That authentic self didn't disappear. It went underground, into the depths of your unconscious, waiting patiently for you to remember it exists. But that authentic self has been trying to communicate with you all along, sending signals through dreams you dismissed as meaningless, through patterns in your relationships you called bad luck, through synchronicities and moments of inexplicable longing. Jung's work isn't just theoretical psychology, it's a practical roadmap for navigating back to that lost, authentic self and learning to live from that place of genuine integrity. The journey begins with a simple but revolutionary shift in attention. Instead of constantly looking outside yourself for validation, direction, and meaning, you start paying attention to your inner experience with the same intensity you've been giving to external demands. You begin noticing your dreams, however strange they seem. You start observing patterns in your relationships and reactions, however uncomfortable. You develop curiosity about the emotions you'd rather avoid and the thoughts you try to suppress. This continues with developing what Jung called active imagination, approaching your inner world with curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of immediately trying to fix what you discover about yourself, you explore it. The process deepens through integration rather than elimination. The goal isn't to destroy your difficult emotions or shadow qualities, but to understand them, work with them, and find their healthy expression. This isn't easy work. It requires courage to face parts of yourself you've been avoiding. It demands honesty about the ways you've been living from persona rather than authenticity. But it's also the most liberating work you'll ever do, because on the other side lies genuine self-acceptance, authentic relationships, and meaning that comes from within rather than external validation. Something drew you to this exploration. Trust that instinct. Follow that curiosity. This is your moment of absolute choice, and there's no neutral ground. You can close this video, return to the comfortable patterns of unconscious living, and pretend you never encountered these ideas about shadow work, archetypal possession, and authentic individuation. Many people make exactly that choice. The pull of familiar suffering often feels safer than the uncertainty of genuine psychological growth. Or you can acknowledge what you've learned here, The parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the patterns you've been repeating, the authentic self that's been suffocating under layers of persona and social expectation, and commit to the most important journey of your life, becoming who you actually are beneath all the programming. If you choose the path of consciousness and integration, everything in your experience will begin to change. You'll start seeing the world through completely different eyes. You'll recognize the personas that others wear and the shadows they project onto their relationships. Most importantly, you'll gradually stop living from the collection of roles and expectations you've been carrying and start expressing your authentic self in every area of your life. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That extraordinary privilege is available to you right now, in this moment, with the choice you make next. What will it be? Will you return to the comfortable sleep of unconscious living, or will you answer the call to psychological awakening? I want to invite you to make your choice concrete. In the comments below, tell me which of these ideas confronted you most directly. What aspect of your shadow are you finally ready to acknowledge? What pattern in your life suddenly makes sense in a completely new way? Just by putting these recognitions into words, you're already beginning the crucial process of making the unconscious conscious. You're taking the first step toward the freedom that comes from living authentically. Your authentic self has been waiting in the depths of your unconscious for this moment of recognition and choice. Don't keep it waiting any longer. Thanks for having the courage to look into the darkness where your light has been hiding. I'll see you in the depths.